Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. So, as people jump into the stream, always important to remember if you can give me the warm and fuzzies, say hi, let me know that my mic and my visual and audio are working great. That's always helpful. And we're going to dive in and go through a lot of items today. And as we get into this summertime season, it can, these lives can get a little slow, and that's okay. Remember, I'm here to help and hang out with this audience as long as people show up. I will show up, and just kind of understanding that the flow in the summertime, it naturally slows down a little bit. Um, okay, thank you so much, Liz, for giving me those warm and fuzzies. So, as we warm up into these lives, and I can obviously see the count and kind of understand, like, okay, how many people do we have live at a given moment? I'm always kind of slowing the pace down in the beginning. Hey, Daphne, to just make sure people can hear me, see me, and people are saying hello. So let's start. As always, I think you can see it gets pretty thematic at this point in doing the live sessions, but let's go backwards before we go forwards. And so, as I had mentioned last week in the live, I was going to consider doing a video that was combating bad interview advice. So I gave that a shot yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to check out that video, please do. I was thinking about it this morning, and it was really interesting. Of course, I'm going to go on these little tirades as we're slow and warming into this session. But my first YouTube video ever was based on the fact that I watched a Tell Me About Yourself video. It had 10 million views, and it was really, really bad advice. So I wanted to give better advice. And in the 5.5+ years that I've been on YouTube, I haven't really knocked other people's advice. Obviously, I'm a super positive person. The foundation is gratitude, etc. But I did find another 10 million view video. It was a TikTok, and it was about questions to ask during the interview. It's really poor advice for 10.3 million views. And so that's the video I did yesterday. So again, I would just, whether it's comments in today's live or if it's comments on the actual video itself, is that type of video helpful? Where I look at a TikTok or a YouTube short, and I just kind of provide some feedback on why that advice isn't good. I don't really know. I don't know if it's better to spend time saying this advice isn't good as opposed to saying, well, here is the actual good advice, right? But I'm kind of doing a little bit of both in those videos. But again, it's just a test run. So I did finally make the decision. I am going to do a much more significant live push, or sorry, shorts push, starting this week. So I'm going to try and do. I'm thinking about maybe trying to do 5 videos a week, so including this live and doing a little bit more of a push towards shorts content. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm wanting to continue to play around with it. I'm approaching 6 years on YouTube, and so we're always trying to figure out, like, how do we focus and pivot and change the journey? How do we continue to evolve and grow our content? How do I produce more and more content for you, the audience? Okay, so in today's live session, in our downtime, all the lives are a Q&A, but in our downtime, we'll talk about, should you just be yourself in a job interview? Because the short answer is yes, but there's some negatives that come with that as well. And so we'll talk through that quite a bit. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. I do one-on-one interview, negotiation, and strategy sessions. And obviously, I have that AI tool. If you're not aware, it's an AI practice interview tool. And the joke with my clients is the tool sounds exactly like me. That's how I built it. That's where all the dev costs have gone, and building those great prompts on the back end. So 20% discount if you use the coupon code or promo code SUM24. And that's also for my interview mastery course, which has now been out for a couple of years, getting really good feedback still on that course, which is great. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I do go live at 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original content every Monday. And again, I might be It might be, again, producing more short form content. And then I will, any shorts that I do on YouTube, I'll also throw up on TikTok because it's pretty low hanging fruit and pretty easy to do. Okay, let's dive in. It looks like we don't have much yet. So as you're coming in, remember, anything and everything is on the table. I'm going to say hello to anybody who has chimed in so far. And then in our downtime, again, we'll talk about how to be yourself in a job interview, but also find the balance there. Okay, cool. Okay, so this was an early comment, it looks like from yesterday. To be or not to be, this is my interview. Okay, so again, I'll quickly and really strongly suggest that to be or not to be, this is my interview. Like, we're going to talk quite a bit about this, but like, it's more likely to be your interview if you're being yourself and preparing appropriately. So much of what we see online, and I'm probably going to do a LinkedIn post on this. Somebody on that TikTok video that I shot, reviewing that TikTok video yesterday, was like, I just want to be myself. Just give me the job. It's like, well, you can't just be yourself and get the job. You can be yourself backed by preparation. And when people think preparation isn't being themselves, we have to we have to prepare to be successful in any aspect of life. Every single aspect takes preparation, practice. It really takes consistency. So again, we'll dive a little bit more into it as we go through this conversation. Hey, Liz, thanks for being here. Cloudy in Sarasota, and all is working. Thank you. I appreciate that. We are through the June gloom at the beach here in San Diego, and it will be sunny every single day for the next 4 months. No drop of rain. And I know that sounds wonderful, but it's sometimes nice to get weather, but we usually don't get it. This is our July, August, September, October. We won't probably see a drop of rain, and it will be sunny every day, which is nice. Sometimes the sun can give you depression too, which is weird. You just want to change a pace, but maybe that's because I grew up in the Northeast and I kind of like the change of seasons, but I'll take it, of course. Hey, Daphne, thanks for being here. Hey, your videos were instrumental in prepping me for Google's interviews and getting the right mindset to anticipate and answer case questions. I was called this AM and given a verbal offer. Amazing. Awesome. Next steps include candidate form from the hiring committee to digest. My question is in the compensation section. How do I approach my first discussion regarding a total compensation number? So happy for you, first of all. And then second of all, I'm so happy that you're here because there's only one thing to do with that form, and that's leave the compensation piece blank. Let's take a step back. Negotiating compensation in written form is terrible advice. And if anybody's giving you that advice, it's terrible for one reason. Humans struggle to say no to other humans. When we put it in written form, it's much easier to say no or push back. Everything gets easier when it's written. When it's verbal, it's more challenging, it's more complicated. So just leave that section blank. And then when it comes to a total compensation number, of course, I have a negotiation service and I'm here to help if you need it, and I recommend it. But if you don't take that path, go to practiceinterviews.com, scroll to the bottom, go to our free resources section, and use that offer template. It helps you kind of model out the numbers. I definitely recommend levels.fyi as a resource. I don't think it's the best, but like the numbers aren't the best, but it's the best source we have to give you kind of an accurate number of what you should be expecting. The biggest thing in the negotiation with Google is they will not rescind your offer if you go big. So go big. I just think so many people negotiating with Google leave money on the table, and there's just no reason to leave money on the table. You can go big, and they might push back or say no. Obviously, equity is going to be the biggest push point. Do not forget that you can also ask for a sign-on. You can push on the base salary, but equity is going to be your best play. Negotiations are complex. They're not that simple. And this is not a push on my services, but it can be really powerful to get a professional. Whatever that cost is, most of my negotiation clients, like a 30 or 40 or 50x on what they would have gotten in additional money, right? So it's like just make sure you go big. That's my biggest piece of advice. Yes, congrats. Awesome. Okay, rub it in. Summer is tropical season on this side. Yes, and I mean, I think with everything in San Diego, I'll just give the context that we hit that global article about being the one of the 10 impossibly unaffordable cities in the world. I think four were in California: San Francisco, San Jose, LA, and San Diego, along with like Sydney and Hong Kong. And it's just based on wages and cost of housing mostly. So we get beautiful weather. We definitely pay for it. Okay, so this is a pretty slow session to warm into. So for anybody here, remember any and all questions are on the table. What I want to do is I am going to take some time to talk about should you be yourself in the job interview. I'm going to answer this one question, then we're going to dive into that quite a bit. Thanks so much for the clarity. Exactly why I came in here before approaching next steps. Really appreciate the advice. Looking into your site for additional resources now. Okay, awesome. Good luck. Go big and then be gracious and kind throughout. Remember, your recruiter is your advocate and your partner. They're there to help you. They're not incentivized to hold back money. Really, really important data point. Should you just be yourself in the job interview? 100%. Always be yourself. Always bring your authentic self. Always be transparent. Always be honest. Now, being yourself does not mean you do not prepare. And I think that is the cross section of understanding that being yourself and not preparing is, I think, the biggest piece of confusion. People just want to be themselves, but then it's like, I just want to be myself, but I also don't want to prepare. So it's like you want to be yourself, but you don't want to put in the work. And to be successful in life at anything, we got to put in a little bit of work. Of course, luck is a big part of it, but we got to put in the work too. And I would say, as I reflect back through all my interviews throughout my life, like luck just played a tremendous part in my success, but I also prepared probably more than 99% of people for all my job interviews to come in and be successful. So most of the comments I see, and I see a lot of comments about just being myself, it comes with, this is just my opinion, but it comes with the like, I don't want to prepare, I don't want to do the work. Then there's the other piece of just being yourself. Of course, you want to be transparent, you want to be honest, but we don't share negative details in an interview. Negativity brings that interviewer down and will ultimately yield in you not getting the job. So if you had a terrible manager and they're like, all right, well, what was the worst part about your last manager? We highlight a skill that they did have. So, for example, the worst manager I've ever had in my career, if I was asked about that person, I'd say, one of their greatest skills was program and project management. They were really good at looking at the big picture and breaking it down into smaller pieces. And that actually helped me in my career. And so that's an honest statement. They really were good at that. They were not good at a lot of other things that make good leaders and good managers, but we can still be ourselves and highlight the positives as well. But being ourselves comes so much with preparation. And I always use the basketball analogy. If I'm going to go try out for the basketball team, probably going to go shoot free throws every day for a week or 2 weeks. If I just want to be myself out on the court, well, I'm not going to beat out Sue, who went and shot free throws every day for 2 weeks. I hope that helps. We can dive quite a bit more into this item as we go through the conversation. I've heard you should be your best self like you're on a date. Exactly. Now, negative, it brings people down. Positive brings people up. And that's pretty consistent, right? And again, that's why I love this audience. I love this community, this tribe, whatever we want to call it, right? Because everybody, I think most people here connect to that positive messaging, and that happens in an interview too. So you do want to be the best version of yourself. And even if you're like pre-planning to go on a date, that maybe that best version of yourself is getting cleaned up, thinking about some questions you might want to ask that other person. There's all these little things that you're going to do to get prepared. Yeah, maybe like you even take that next step of getting a haircut or getting a new outfit or doing any of those things that you might do on a first date. Those are all steps of preparation. If we said, "Hey, I'm just going to be myself," we didn't get cleaned up. We wore our sweatpants and a dirty T-shirt, and we just showed up and kind of started buying a bunch of beers or like whatever it might be. Right? It's probably not going to work out as good. I like that a lot, Brad. Thanks for sharing. Is there anything I can do in an interview to get an HM to be themselves? I feel like I've just been duped in the past. How do you get to their truer self? Any key questions or just trust your gut? Yeah, so this is Liz. First of all, this is a fantastic question because the reality is like it's so hard to uncover that. I mean, the only question in my mind, and it's the same question I go back to when I think about leadership 100% of the time. Do you focus on the person first or the employee first? And I mean, I don't know, like we could kind of problem solve it and think through it now. Like, how do we ask that as a question? Like, we can ask questions about their management style. I mean, how do we ask that question? Um, I don't think I actually like, I'm kind of brainstorming, and I don't think there's a way to ask that question that won't come off across the wrong way. But that's a question that maybe, again, like if if we get to the point where a hiring manager is really interested in us and they want to hire us, and we like them, but we still want to double check because we know that our managers make or break our work environment. Like nothing is more important. You could work at the best company in the world, bad manager, bad company, period. So the best thing to do would actually be to speak to it would really be to speak to team members and say, hey, does manager Sue, when Sue puts her focus into you, does it feel like she cares about you as the person first, or does she treat like is she more like on the employee side of things? And you again could shape and work that question. Use ChatGPT to throw out some options for you or whatever your preferred Gen AI tool is, and see what types of questions it comes up with. But if a hiring manager really wants to hire you and you say, hey, I'd love to connect with a few of the team members beforehand, and they absolutely shut it down, maybe that's evidence of a bad hiring manager. They don't want you to talk to team members. That could be a little scary. The other good question, actually, Liz, while we're here, that you can ask is ask a hiring manager what they love about their team. Because if they just gloat and glow and they say, we got Sue, Jane, and Bob, and ironically, Sue is also the hiring manager, but we say, we got these three people and they're all amazing and they do great work and they work together. And I'm so fortunate to have great team members. Whoa. Okay. Now we're learning something. Now we're seeing maybe that this is a hiring manager that we'd like to work for. So I actually do think that that works. That's kind of one of my default questions anyway. And that's another little trick to just kind of understand whether you have a good hiring manager. We go to the love word because if they show any negativity in those types of questions, like, what do you love about your job? What do you love about the company? What do you love about the team? What's the coolest thing, as long as you feel comfortable sharing, that you're working on right now? So if they're like, oh, well, the company's going through some challenges and the team is good, we have our struggles, and, you know, whoa, like if they're going to a negative place in questions from somebody they don't even know and they're trying to get onto their team, it's a really good indicator that maybe it's not right. Yeah, of course we trust our gut, but the reality is that we just can't know. I had managers throughout my career who I even did my due diligence to find out if they were good or bad, and then you can't really do that because here's the other thing. So again, we'll go back to the book I've talked about a million times, The 9 Lies About Work, and lie number 6 is that people can accurately rate or judge others, which they cannot. So you could meet a really nice person, but when it comes to performance review time, they're analytical, you're not. You did a great job, but you don't do it through their lens or their style, and you get a bad review, even though you thought you liked them as a person. It's not aligned when it comes to performance reviews because of their personality type. It's a whole other conversation, right? But it is a great question. Um, okay, let's see. All right, Liz, thanks for coming in here. Thanks very much, Jeff. I like that. What do you like the best or love about your team? Also, I think it may come to why is this role open? Do we ask that these days? Um, ideally, the recruiter. Ideally, the recruiter is giving you more insight. I would push on the recruiter to say, like, how long has this job been open? And again, this actually speaks quite a bit to the video that I did yesterday. Like the questions that this woman was proposing that people asked during the interview should 100% not be asked during the interview. They should be asked during a screen, an initial call, not during a real interview. And so I think I did a video really recently about like, and I think I outlined like the 30 questions you can ask your recruiter. So it's like, why is this role open? Then we do try to find out if the person left or they got promoted, how long it's been open, how many people are in the pipeline. But yeah, I think that's a really good initial question. Now, if your initial point of contact is the hiring manager and that's your first conversation, that could happen at a really small company where maybe they don't have a recruiter or a big talent acquisition team. Yeah, we can directly ask that question. I still think it's a good question, but again, based on what I know about you, Liz, and the companies you're targeting, definitely ask that question of the recruiter. They should be able to answer it. And if they don't, we can kind of challenge their lack of transparency a little bit because that might uncover things too. I might say, if they're like, oh, I can't tell you, well, you can't. I'm just curious. You can't tell me if it's newly created, if somebody left the role, if somebody got promoted. Why is it that you're not able to tell me? And I want that to come across in the nicest tone, but nobody's ever told me that they can't tell me. Right. So, again, if the recruiter responded in that way, I would just push back. It's actually a good little sneaky trick, by the way. Like sometimes when recruiters do things or like your point of contact just doesn't answer questions or you just got to probe and some one of my favorite questions is, well, have you ever done it before? Have you ever answered that question before? Have you ever told people has there ever been that use case? Because in the moment again they'll really struggle to say no, there's never been that use case if there actually has been. Okay, let's get back to our main topic. And of course, as questions come in, I'm happy to answer them. Again, summertime gets slow, so I'll try and keep us going. But any questions, comments, thoughts, obviously, incredibly welcome here. So, should you be yourself in an interview? So again, we've talked a little bit about the answer being yes, backed by preparation, and sometimes also like when we let's talk about behavioral answers for a second. So like definitely being ourself in the behavioral answer, but highlighting the positives again. So I think about being myself and thinking through like some of the challenging areas in any example that I'm giving. I'm just going to really work through those details in a positive way, but I can't do that without a plan and preparation. Now I feel like I'm just getting a little repetitive on this subject, but that's really the truth of it. And so anybody who doesn't want to put in the work, I would just say it's an indication um, of a little bit of a lack of maturity. And I mean, I get it too. Like sometimes we can just be really frustrated by going through interviews, not getting feedback, like just all the applications that people throw in, they don't have success. It can just really weigh on people. And I get that. But again, showing up and being prepared is the only way to guarantee success. And then being yourself, but being the positive version of yourself. Those are really the two most important areas. But I have found in the history of this comment of like, I just want to be myself. It's coming with the lack of wanting to actually put in the work and do the prep. So I think the shortest live session I've ever had was about 37 minutes. We're at 25 minutes. It's been a really lean question day. We don't have a lot of attendees. Um, you throw in some comments. Let me know if you want me to keep going today. We could have a really, really short session today. That's okay. I don't show up for the views or any of that stuff. I just show up for you, the community. And so, if we ever run into a scenario like we're about to run into today, again, I'm happy to keep it short. I want to make sure that I'm not just chatting at the screen to chat. Like, let's I want to make sure that this is valuable for everybody here as I just kind of fumble through and try and fill the time. So, well, let's do this. I'll just talk about my services for a moment. If any additional questions come in, great. If not, we can have a super light live session today, and I'll be back for the holiday week in the U.S. next week, next Tuesday. Let me just go and prompt on my services, and we might have a real short session today, and that's okay. So if you're just jumping on, just today, we got a coupon slash promo code SUM24. That's 20% off the AI tool and the interview mastery course. The best thing that's happened with the AI tool is we're just getting a ton of positive feedback on our ideal answer component. People are really liking to see what we think is the ideal answer. And we are also going to do a total facelift to the entire UI and UX. And that's all coming in the next 2 to 4 weeks, depending on dev work and the roadmap and everything. But it's going to have a major facelift and upgrade. And we're pushing. I know that this tool is going to help people come in at a price point that's really affordable. So if you want to check it out, definitely use this code. And of course, the interview mastery course also 20% off. And that's just today. Let's go back to comments. Looks like a couple of comments came in. Whoops. Okay, here we go. Hey, Brad. I had a Zoom interview yesterday and it seemed to go okay. Should I respond back with a thank you or something similar? I do not think that thank yous in 2024 carry the same weight as they did in 2004, where we'd write that handwritten note. Maybe we'd go in person and drop it off, right? I don't think it's necessary, but it can't hurt you. The biggest thing with any thank you note, I know this is so silly, but it's make it short and sweet. Few sentences, highlight one item that you maybe enjoyed. Thank you so much for your time yesterday. I really enjoyed discussing A, B, and C. Looking forward to next steps. Thanks, Brad. And then just grammar check it. Or now we can run it through a generative AI tool to just make sure that it's really clean. There are no spelling errors. That's the only thing. If we write a thank you note and has spelling errors, it's grammatically incorrect, it can hurt us. But for the most part, I like thank you notes. I think they're worth the couple of minutes they take. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, short and sweet. So anybody who just hopped on, why don't we do a short live session today? Brad, we got another Brad comment. How long should I wait for a next step before I give up? Well, I think it's company dependent, right? And I don't want you to share anything confidential, but I usually give companies, I'll give them a week, 5 business days. If I haven't heard back after 5 business days, I reach out. And I think 5 business days is enough time for somebody to get feedback in and not feel pokey, but it's not too fast either. And then I think we're just also really like Brad, depending on where you live, like we just always want to keep in mind like next week in the US, like a lot of people take off at least Thursday, Friday, they're going to take off, or maybe they're going to take off Wednesday through Sunday or like whatever they're going to do. So just keep the timing in mind next week. Like it's super tricky. That's not to say that they shouldn't be on top of it. Reach out to you, follow up. They should do all those things. But just, I always think around the holidays, we want to just keep that in mind as much as possible. I have 2 interviews first, a technical judgment, and a GCA interview. The team has been found 2 years ago. I had a successful loop, but team was never found. Why am I having the first 2 not a loop? I have 2 interviews first, a technical judgment and a GCA. Okay. Why am I having the first 2 and not a loop? Well, everything changed after COVID, and so they're just doing less interviews up front because before they just had to bring you on site and you'd go through your full slate. It didn't mean that being on site guaranteed that everybody would be in person. Sometimes you'd be on a Google Meets during your time in that conference room, but they're prioritizing in what I believe is a positive way. They're trying to not waste interviewers' time and not waste candidate time. So if you can get through the first couple, they'll move on to the additional interviews. And then sometimes they can repurpose previous interviews, but at 2 years, it's probably been too long. Hey, Jeff, thanks so much for your videos. I'm applying for an AS position, and my recruiter said she also submitted me for an AM position. This is a good thing. 100%. Remember well, maybe you don't know. So I'll tell you. So the kind of tier is account strategist, account manager, account executive. That's kind of the path. And so if they're submitting you for both, you probably have enough experience to be considered as a strategist and a manager. Um, Obviously, the account manager role is going to be a little bit more challenging and pay more. So if you can get in front of that account manager role, it's definitely something I suggest. But it's good news. Anytime they're seeing us at that, maybe more account strategist it's a more entry level role. And then they're seeing us at that next level. That's always good. It means that they've at least taken a really good look at our profile and have been able to assess like, hey, what are the roles that we're a good fit for? I always like when a recruiter is keeping the options open. Good luck. Hey, Jeff, finished my Amex interview last Friday. Okay. And although I haven't heard back yet, it went really well. Amazing. They enjoyed questions a lot and mentioned it also. Wish I sent a thank you note as noted above. Don't worry about that. Um, is it still too late? Last interview was with the VP on Friday. Panel was last Wednesday. I would say at this point, skip it. It looks like an afterthought now. And thank yous are just not expected. And oftentimes, like Amex is a pretty big company, so it's funneled through a recruiter. Recruiters actually don't always send those thank you notes on. It's not going to hurt you. Don't worry about it. I just think in this world, like it's not expected, and I can tell you, like Google interviewers did not expect thank you notes. Although I do have a quick funny story. I did from one of my hiring managers at Google say he got upset that the candidates weren't dressing up for the interviews, and I told him that was me telling them to dress casually. So that was pretty funny. But no, they don't really get upset when there's no thank you notes. Hey, Jeff, had the BSA interview last week, but it didn't go well. I'm sorry to hear that. They've scheduled another round coming week. They're expecting DB design questions. I'm not tech savvy. Suggestions on the prep. Okay, so first of all, it probably went better than you think because typically if they have some feedback that's just not indicating you're a fit, they can stop the process. So it's probably a little bit better than you think. Candidates tend to be really hard on themselves. There's no perfect interview answers, right? You can try and get as close as possible, but it's just not a perfect process. They're expecting database design questions. I'm not tech savvy. Well, if you're going after a business systems analyst role, like you're going to have some of the design that's required for these types of roles. So it's going to be more design domain specific. If you're going to design anything, we got to clarify a few things. We got to establish our approach. We got to make a few assumptions and then solve. So for any design-based question, whether that's DB design, solution design, system design, I still think CFAS works really good. We clarify the direction. When we're building the design, that's kind of our framework. We have the 4 sections maybe that we want to work on. We make some assumptions to narrow our focus and then we solve. So look at CFAS as an opportunity to excel in those types of questions in that type of interview. I hope that helps. And then will they discontinue the upcoming rounds if this did not go well and decide on that basis of all the rounds? Yeah. So again, the fact that they're moving forward, if the feedback came in really negative, they can cancel interviews. But since they haven't taken that step, it sounds positive as of right now. But yeah, of course, companies have been able to get much more flexible since COVID. in terms of interviewing you for doing one interview or a couple interviews as opposed to the full slate. And I do believe that that actually is good for everybody, not only good for the company, but good for the candidate. We don't want to sit in a bunch of interviews if we're not a fit for the role. By the way, notice that I didn't mention in my haste, thanks for all your help. Of course, of course. Thank you for being here and thank you for saying it. I really appreciate it. I do really appreciate this community. I know like this has been a pretty slow session. I'm going to kind of, okay. Yeah, we'll take any questions that come in. Thank you. Okay. Hey, Jeff, I'm currently in the process for HC approval. I don't have any competing offers which can help. Do you have any particular advice which can help me in negotiations? Yes, let me give you the advice that I give everybody. Competing offers, your hiring committee. So, hiring committee is Google. Competing offers with Google, they help 2% of the time, 3% of the time. Why? Because Google's in the top 1% of paying companies in the world. And people can argue that up and down, but that's just the truth. Competing offers at Google, you should see how many negotiations I have where candidates come in with competing offers and we never even introduce or use them because they won't help us, they'll hurt us. This is a really, really critical data point. Competing offers can hurt us, not help us. So, really understand what is the potential total compensation for that role. And if, again, I know you're saying you don't have any, but if anybody has them, you say, okay, well, I'm interviewing with Google and I'm getting this offer. I have this offer from AWS for 200K, but Google would have paid you 300K. They're saying, whoa, their other offer is much lower. We can pay them lower. I mean, again, they're not going to do that, but it's just not as important with a company like Google as people think. The biggest thing when it comes to negotiation is anchor high, go big on equity. I have a ton of videos on negotiation. I obviously have that one-on-one service. And I really want to be transparent. The goal of these lives is not to sell, but for everybody who told me my negotiation service is too expensive and it's not even as expensive as levels.fyi. And I know that I've done much more work than anybody you would get on that platform. The reality is people leave so much money on the table by not hiring a professional to do it. Whatever the cost of that service is, it's going to be a 10x, 20x, 30x, 40x on whatever that investment is. And it's really not a price, it's an investment because most of the big tech offers are 4-year offers, not 1-year offers. Just something to keep in mind. But again, I'm here to give free advice, and the free advice is anchor high, especially on the equity. Absolutely ask for a sign-on bonus. Understand the salary bands and understand that that will move the least in your offer. I hope that helps. Hey, Daphne, during interviews, I find myself interrupting when they're telling a story to show agreement or enthusiasm and keep the conversation flowing. Is it better to let the interviewer finish before acknowledging? Acknowledge with body language, smile, and kind of come in and shake your head, acknowledge, but words when listening, when I hear the yep, I get it, it can be extremely distracting to the person who's speaking. And so when I listen, I give some body language acknowledgement, but I am silent. It's really important that they have the ability to talk. And here's what's more critical: the more somebody else speaks, the more they like you. In a job interview, if they spend 30 minutes speaking and ask you very few questions and they do all the talking, that is an excellent result for you. The more they talk, the more they like you. That is not Jeff speak. That is science. That is data. That is psychology. The more somebody talks about themselves, the more they like you. So build the space for them to talk about themselves. You may even probe on something they said. You could say, I know we're in an interview, but I was so interested by X. Can you tell me a little more? And then boom, let them talk throughout the entire interview. It'll work. And those percentages will always play in your favor. The less we talk in an interview, the better our result. I hope that helps. Hey, Jim. Good to see you. Good to hear from you. It's been a minute, so I hope all is well and everything's going good with you. Thank you so much, Jeff. For an ASAM role positions, do you tend to see an average of how many rounds of interview it takes? Those are only 3 interviews. Yeah, the AS, AM, and AE role, they're only 3. Yeah, so it's just an RRK, a GCA, and a GNL interview, so it's very, very lean. Good news, less interviews, also challenging because you really gotta excel in all 3. I mean, of course, for those roles, there's a ton of competition, so the biggest piece of advice I can give you is first things first, just get after the prep. And then, secondarily, any courses you can take on Google Ads is going to be incredibly valuable. Your recruiter might tell you that you don't need to know Google Ads, but I basically coach as many account strategists as I do for any other role. And I could tell you some are coming in with significant Google Ads knowledge. And it's an advantage, specifically in hypothetical questions, to say what type of product or products they would solve with. It's a huge advantage. So definitely get super cozy with the Google Ads space as quickly as possible. The priority should always be on your interview skills. Do the 80-20, 80% on interview prep and 20% on the ad space. That's going to really, really help you. I hope that helps. Yeah, definitely. I just appreciate you being here, always showing up. It's great. And I appreciate the people who come in and week out and really keep these lives going. I'm always, we're always kind of like reflecting back and looking at our journeys in all aspects of life, right? And so in early 2022, when there were always 100 plus people on these lives, like I just assumed that that was the future state and these lives would always get bigger. And then all the tech hiring went down and they got a lot slower. But it's so great for people to show up every week, keep them going, because the longer we keep it going, it allows more people to jump in, ask questions, make sure that we get people headed in the right direction. So I appreciate you and all the people who continue to show up week after week. It's really, really helpful for fueling these conversations, and making sure that I'm spending enough time live where people are getting some valuable feedback. Yeah, Brad, thank you for being here always. I really appreciate it. Liz beat you to the punch this week on letting me know that my audio and visual was good, but you're typically number one in that area. All right, let's do this again. I think we're pretty slow today. That's okay. I know it's summertime, so I'll continue to show up. I don't have any planned lives to take off all summer. I'm going to be here. I'm not traveling. I'm spending my money building my AI tool, so I will be around. But let's prompt on a couple things. If you're just joining us, we've had a pretty good chat today. Just some Q&A, and then the quick and short answer of should you be yourself in the interview? Yes, but don't just be yourself. You've got to prep and prepare like a crazy person. Hey, Jeff, Google scheduled a follow-up interview for me after hiring committee review. Should I expect a harder interview this time? No. So they're looking for more data. Now, first of all, you should know exactly what that interview is, what type of interview, whether it's a GCA, RRK, or GNL. Your recruiter should tell you that. It's a very fair question to ask. They should have already told you. It's not going to be harder. It's just, I want to be very transparent to say that your performance has to be incredibly strong. Meaning there's really only 2 results that you can get in that interview. It's a hire or strong hire. Like you have to be getting a really good hiring indication, because if it's just like, okay, it's not enough to move the needle. It has to be really good. So whatever you're doing, just understand this is a major opportunity for you. It's one interview. Put everything out there, prep and practice as hard as you can, because this one interview will be the make or break. Okay. So it won't be harder, but there's just going to be a little bit more pressure. And I'm not saying that to create more anxiety or stress. It's actually a positive. If you do really well in this interview, there is such a strong chance that you get the job. So time and effort, there's just no amount of time that's not going to be too much. Just put it all out there and you'll do great. Good luck. Let us know how it goes. Okay. So, again, slow shut. I like to make fun of myself when I can't speak during these lives because it's just me talking at myself, but slow session today. Again, if any additional questions come in, I'm happy to answer them. I'm actually going to go into my wrap up. We're 45 minutes in. I think it was pretty good. Again, more questions come in. I'm happy to answer them, but I'll go into wrap up for now. Okay. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. I do one-on-one interview, one-on-one negotiation, and one-on-one strategy sessions. Strategy is resume, LinkedIn, networking, etc. I have two real products. I have an AI product and I have a interview mastery course, both 20% off today. Getting tons of great feedback on both the AI tool and the course. And the AI tool is a continued work in progress. We are figuring it out, even though it's going, and lots of good things coming. Lots of really really good things that I'm really excited about. Uh, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday and new original content every Monday with a much heavier push towards short starting this week. I am committing to that. I'm going to do that. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, those are the specific times you can find my content. What are your feelings about asking for another interview? Allow them to get more signal from an interview that might not have been super strong. I don't. I don't like it. Yeah, Jim, I think you know me well enough for me to be incredibly transparent with you. I don't the asking afterwards, like like I could have done better on this question, or if I can just chat with somebody again. I've seen a 0% success rate with that. Now, look, it doesn't mean that you have to listen to my advice or guidance. It's just my opinion. I haven't found that approach to be successful, but there's always a first, right? So definitely, if that's something that you want to try it. But I haven't seen that to be a successful path. Hi, Jeff. Are refresher grants typically the same as the initial grant over 4 years? No, that is the biggest piece of fake news that I've ever seen. You see this all the time where it's like, oh, that grant's going to match X. No, it's refresher grants are meant to keep you whole, meaning that for refresher grants are given at public companies, usually big tech public companies, and they're given because you get a 4-year equity grant and then it disappears after 4 years. Your compensation would drop so significantly. Refreshers are meant to keep you whole so that when you go into year 5, you're either earning more or at least staying flat, not going into a deficit. And if you're making less in year 5, you may want to consider leaving. So they're just meant to keep you whole. But refreshers have a lot of different components to them. It's based on level, role, manager discretion, et cetera, but it's not based on your initial grant. Will those numbers kind of align and make sense over time? Sure, because they're meant to hold you up. So higher the level, higher the refreshers, lower the level, lower the refreshers, and it's all relative, right? But I mean, it will not be based on your initial grant. That I see that all over the place, and that's just not how it works. Yeah, yeah. Again, I hope that feedback helps. Good question, Jeff. I've seen a less base component I'm earning currently in the total comp offered by Google at level. Should I ask for a higher base or accept the lower base and ask for more equity? Should ask for more of both. But one of the most common items that happens for anybody going into a big tech firm that has a really strong base compensation already, there's a pretty decent chance that you'll make less base, but your total comp with that pretty much guaranteed bonus, with the equity, with the potential sign on, it's just almost always significantly higher. Um, but the base salary bands are tighter. But should you ask for more base? Of course. And equity and sign on, just always ask for more. But just know that the base ranges by level are going to be pretty tight. At an L3, you might be able to move at 5K, L4, maybe 5 to 10K, L5, maybe 5 to 15K, L6, maybe 5 to 20K, and then an L7, maybe that range goes up to 25K that you could move that initial number, maybe 30K, but the base bands are pretty tight. And just make sure you're looking at total compensation, because for the vast majority of people going into big tech, the total comp will crush your current total comp for most people. Okay. Should we pause? We're at 50 minutes. Again, we haven't hit the hour mark. We pretty much hit the hour mark every week, but I'll just kind of sit here for a second, see if any additional comments come in. Okay, cool. We got another one. Hi, Jeff. I appreciate the valuable information. Quick question. I saw that the business analyst regulatory affairs position in Google. What kind of technical or behavioral interview should I prepare for? Well, any BA role, like if it's regulatory affairs, first of all, you got to have experience in that space. And then business analysts don't, unless you're like a business systems analyst, but just a straight business analyst, it's going to be more domain specific than technical, right? Now, of course, if the role requires something like SQL, well, maybe you'll get SQL questions, but if it doesn't call that out in the job description, probably not. But basically, you want to prepare for domain specific hypothetical questions and scenarios, and then you want to bring your best behavioral examples to the table. On the behavioral side, it's just your best examples, and then thinking about specific use cases that might come up for a business analyst specifically. Would this position have the same type of interview as a software engineer? Absolutely not. Software engineer is going to have coding, and most software engineer positions at most companies are going to be heavily, looking at the coding. If you go up a level or a couple levels, it's going to include coding and system design. And then most software engineer interviews include some sort of behavioral interview. But no, a business analyst is non-technical. I've been an analyst in my career. I am not technical. I understand technical terminology. I can speak technically, but I'm not technical at my core, right? And so no, they're very, very different interviews. Yeah. Okay. Holding here. We still have a decent audience size. So again, if any additional questions come in, I'm just going to sit in here for a second. Obviously, we've talked quite a bit about the theme. Be yourself in the job interview, backed by massive amounts of preparation and practice and positivity. That's about being yourself, backed with having a plan, having a goal. Okay, let's end here. I think it's a good session. For any additional follow-up questions, go to practiceinterviews.com, scroll to the bottom, join our free Slack community. Obviously, I do these lives at 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. And if you go to practiceinterviews.com and you want my one-on-one time, you can book a session with me. Thank you so much. Have a great day.